of a South American variety. World Cup qualifying in Conmebol completed its third round on Thursday night. Some of these matches shown live on Sportsmax. Let's check in now on the results and where the teams are now positioned. Colombia 2-2 with Uruguay. Bolivia beaten at home 2-1 by Ecuador. Argentina winning at home 1-0 over Paraguay. Chile 2-0 over Peru. And Brazil held 1-1 by Venezuela. A late overhead kick by Eduardo Bello in the 85th minute, giving the Venezuelans a 1-1 draw with the Brazilians. And here's how the points table looks. Argentina on top with 9 points. They're 2 ahead of Brazil, who dropped their first points with last night's draw against Venezuela. Colombia are 4 points off the lead in third position on 5 points. Uruguay, Chile and Venezuela all have 4 points. Ecuador 3, Paraguay and Peru a point each, and Bolivia yet to get off the mark. So I heard you, Mariah, in your zone updates, talking about the Neymar story and the disrespectful behavior from the fans throwing a bag of popcorn on the head of Neymar, which is never acceptable. He got angry. You could see how angry he was, and with good reason. You just represented your country playing 90 minutes. At least 2 or 3 of the reviews I have read named Neymar as the man of the match, and to have a fan throw something on you in the way that that fan did is hugely disappointing.
Yeah, and I think anybody would get upset, but the sad reality of situations like these, Lance, is when you are in the public eye, when you are a superstar like Neymar is, you are expected to behave in a certain manner. You have no choice. Even if Neymar, as a regular person, there is upset, Lance, he has no choice but to keep walking down that tunnel, because the headlines tomorrow would be Neymar attacked the player, not the fact that what the player did was awful, and Neymar is a human being, and it's only natural if somebody hits out at you for you to become angry. And you know, that human element of sports, sometimes we miss it. We forget that the people on television, the people that play sports, they're also humans, and nothing gets me more upset than storylines like these.
Yeah, very, very disappointing. And I guess the fans were disappointed. Then again, you aren't even sure who threw it, but given what the reports are suggesting, it appears as if it was a Brazilian fan. And as I said, a little, worrying for me, given the fact that it's not that Neymar played badly. You understand, not that you are accepting it, but you would understand that if he had a bad game and played terribly and fans thought that he underperformed, they would emotionally lash out at him. But I don't think that was the case last night. And I think he had to be restricted by the coach and a couple of other people around him. But he looked as if he wanted to get into the stands and throw a few fists.
Lance, Brazil fans are used to dominating football. They're used to having excellent results. They're used to being unbeaten. So the fact that this match, drawn against Venezuela, is the first time Brazil failed to have a win against Venezuela at home. So for the fans, this is unheard of. This should not have happened. And for them, Neymar only performs well when he scores or he assists, Lance. For the fans, they're not used to Neymar coming out and, just having a good performance. They're expecting him to add to the tally of goals. They're expecting him to secure wins for the team. A draw is unheard of for Brazil. So for them, I understand what the fans are used to, Lance. Argentina is, of course, unbeaten. They've had an unblemished record in the South American World Cup qualifiers. Brazil, though, is second when it comes to that table. So that's not okay for them. And I do know that the coach now will be under pressure based on the results because, as I said, Brazil culture is winning football culture. So for the fans and those governing the football in Brazil, this result was unacceptable. Remember, they've never lost to Venezuela at home. This was a draw.
Yeah, well, Venezuela is like bottom of the pile in Conmebol, so that would be, part of the fans' disappointment. At the other side of the coin, though, the Argentina team, your team, Mariah, did well. 13 games undefeated now, and top of the table by themselves because the Brazilians dropped 2 points against the Venezuelans. So
Yeah.
Argentina getting a good result.
Corner kick from Nicolas Otamendi to get that win for them. But I'm a bit worried about Lionel Messi. He came off the bench and his performance was still hampered by injury. So we didn't see the Messi that we're used to seeing, and you saw him struggling. So of course coach had to replace him. After the match, one of the players, and I wrote it down, Rodrigo De Paul, he spoke about having Leo on the field, Lance, makes him feel at ease, makes the team feel very confident. And I think that is what the presence of a Lionel Messi will do, especially to a younger Argentina squad. For me now, after hearing that and seeing Lionel Messi struggling with that injury, I'm a bit concerned about Argentina, because if having Leo on the pitch makes you and your team feel safe, what's going to happen when he's not there? I mean, they're doing what they have to do to get the results. They're unbeaten, and that is, of course, commendable. Brazil not playing the type of football and getting the results that is expected of them. But Argentina without Lionel Messi, we're thinking, they're not as strong as they would have been.
And I guess you have to start embracing that reality soon, because he is in the twilight of his career. And remember, he did retire from international football, was not expected to play beyond the World Cup last year. But because they won, he said the temptation was too great for him to not continue playing for Argentina as a World Cup champion, because it felt so good as a new World Cup champion that he wanted to be a part of it. So that's part of the reason why he has continued. I must say that I'm happy that he won the World Cup. I remember when we were previewing the World Cup, my comment was that if Argentina didn't win the World Cup in 2018 or 2014 or 2010, when Messi was in his prime or at his best, I thought it would have been hard for them to win then. But on reflection, that was oversimplifying the analysis of what a World Cup is and what team strategy is, because Messi is only one player. He may be the engine and he may be the key player to Argentina's success, but he alone cannot be the difference between Argentina winning a World Cup or not winning a World Cup. Juan Arango is joining us,
yes,
belatedly. Juan, we had hoped to be talking to you about 5 or 6 minutes ago, but as they say, better late than never. What was your high point of Conmebol World Cup qualifying last night?
There were a lot of interesting matches. To be quite honest with you, seeing Venezuela come in and only for the second time in World Cup qualifying history had Brazil conceded points at home. So that tells you a lot. And of course, they know that they really lost 2 important points, knowing what's coming up. And what I mean by what's coming up is Argentina coming to Maracanã in the month of November. So they're starting to focus on that in Brazil, especially knowing how well Argentina is playing.
Yeah.
Looking at Chile, how they were able to come back and really bounce back from an adverse start, beating Peru in Lima, really putting Peru in a very complicated situation. And the back and forth that there was between Colombia and Uruguay over in Barranquilla the other day was very impressive. Of course, for Colombia, ends up being very bittersweet, especially the way that Darwin Núñez was able to get the equalizer towards the end of the match. But it shows that those two teams are definitely going to be in the conversation for World Cup qualifying.
Yeah, the Colombia-Uruguay 2-2 draw was a pretty special one as well.
Yeah, it was. You know what? There's been a lot of times that I've criticized James Rodriguez, and I should continue to do so. But he was the man of the match. He was probably the man of the round if you look at individuals that played on this particular day. Seeing James Rodriguez and how he once again had control, how he once again was able to move the ball. He gave the dynamic to Colombia that was necessary to jump on top. But again, it was the defense that ends up letting Colombia down in this match. And Camilo Vargas having to go out of it, scurry out of his area to commit 2 fouls. The second one ends up being the second yellow card of the match, and he ends up leaving his team shorthanded. That's where you end up seeing Colombia having all sorts of problems. It's the first time in a long time that Colombia has conceded 2 goals in World Cup. You have to go back all the way to last year when they were facing Mexico, where they conceded 2 goals in one match. It's been a long time for that.
Yeah, Juan, talk to me about the Brazil draw against Venezuela. Unheard of.
Of course, it's unheard of, but if you see how Venezuela set themselves up defensively, and even Fernando Diniz after the match said, you know what, we need to improve on playing against teams that drop back deep and not give us spaces. And that's one of the problems Brazil did have. That and kind of letting up in certain instances. As soon as they were ahead 1-0, you saw them drop back, and you saw Venezuela slowly finding, with very few numbers, opportunities in front of goal. And of course, Eduardo Bello with the best goal of the round, if you ask me. And for them, it's a huge morale lift, because right now, if it were to end today, Venezuela would be going to their first World Cup. So for them, it's a building block to see what they can do and continue getting. These 3 points were not expected. And I was talking to my colleague that, of course, I do a lot of broadcasts for worldwide. He's from Venezuela. I was saying, look, if they're able to steal points away from home, they're going to have a very good chance of getting to the World Cup. And, well, they got at least one big point over in Cuiabá.
Yeah. Any pressure on the coach, Fernando Diniz? Brazil, they play Uruguay next.
They always have pressure in Brazil. I mean, that's nothing new when it comes to the pressure of performing and losing points. Now, that being said, we know that Brazil's going to be one of those odds-on teams to advance to the World Cup in 2026. We know that. But the big question is, how are they going to get there? I think that the anger and the frustration showed upon Neymar, since he is the face of the national team. It's not on him necessarily. It's just on the overall team performance that they've had, that you're not accustomed to seeing Brazil play the way they did. At times lackadaisical. At times they really weren't truly precise against the Venezuela side that was really, really combative, really blue collar, and looking for any opportunity that could come their way.
Yeah. What about Argentina? They've been unbeaten in this competition so far, even with Lionel Messi carrying that injury.
Well, you know what? I mean, I wish I could play 35, 40 minutes the way he played last night. He wasn't maybe a dominant force, but he created things. He came in and he started giving a bit more of a different look to Argentina and a bit of a different look to Paraguay that they had to defend. I mean, keep in mind, he had a couple of goal opportunities. He has a free kick that hits the post. So he does create things in a very short period of time. Now, that being said, we can't rest aside that he's 36. When he goes to Copa America, he'll be close to 37. And Leo Scaloni wants to steer away a little bit from Messi, knowing, hey, you know what, guys, we need to perform without him, because there will be one day that he is not going to be there. So how is this system going to evolve going into the upcoming World Cup matches, going up into the upcoming World Cup, I should say, and performing knowing that your biggest name, your biggest star, your most relevant figure is probably going to have maybe a reduced role, might have less minutes playing, or maybe not even there. Who knows? That's the big question, and yesterday they once again proved that they could be able to do it.
Yeah, Juan, as usual, always great talking football with you on the Sports Max Zone. We've got to leave it there, and we'll continue to monitor Conmebol World Cup qualifying. Always exciting.
Cool. Thanks a lot, guys. Talk to you later.
Yeah. Next set of matches on Conmebol World Cup qualifying on Sports Max, the home of champions, where the Conmebol World Cup qualifiers live. These are the fixtures coming up on Tuesday: Venezuela, Chile, Paraguay, Bolivia, Ecuador taking on Colombia, Uruguay at home to Brazil, and Argentina will be traveling to Peru coming up Tuesday in the next round of Conmebol World Cup qualifiers. Back with more on the Sports Match Zone after this break.